There have been mornings when I opened my eyes and immediately felt the heavy silence of being stuck. Everything outside of me kept moving, people rushing to work, notifications filling my phone, the same daily cycle rolling on. But inside, I was frozen. I wanted
Sigh.
change so badly, yet I could not move forward. I remember staring at my laptop for hours, the blinking cursor mocking me, as if it knew I had no words left. And the more I sat there, the more I asked myself, what's even the point? Maybe you felt the same. Life doesn't stop, but you do, and suddenly you're not living anymore. You're just existing. That's the moment you begin to wonder if you're broken, when in reality you're just caught in a psychological trap that many of us eventually face. When I started digging deeper, I realized being stuck wasn't about laziness, and it wasn't because I lacked ambition. It was about burnout, invisible fears, and something psychologists call the stuck-in-the-middle effect. At the beginning of a journey, progress feels exciting because every step is proof that you're moving. At the end, the finish line is close enough to taste, and adrenaline pushes you forward. But in the middle, you see only how far you still have to go, and suddenly, the same path that once motivated you now feels endless. I experienced this when I was writing my thesis in college. The first 10 pages were full of energy. The last 5 pages flowed because I could see the end. But the middle chapters, I sat there for weeks feeling like I was drowning in my own words. And it wasn't just work. I felt this in relationships, too excited at the start, hopeful near the end, but somewhere in the middle, I convinced myself I wasn't enough and lost all drive to nurture the connection. On top of that, I discovered something more: hidden, unspoken childhood laws. These are silent rules we inherit from our families. In my case, one of those rules was, you must live a safe and stable life to make your parents proud. No one ever said it directly, but it lived inside me like a ghost. Every time I thought of quitting my job to pursue a creative passion, that voice whispered, "Don't risk it, you'll disappoint them." And so I stayed stuck, not because I lacked direction, but because invisible rules tied me to the past. The real trap wasn't outside, it was inside me, and realizing that was both painful and freeing. The turning point came when I stopped waiting for motivation and started acting, even if it was embarrassingly small. One night, instead of forcing myself to write an entire chapter, I promised myself I'd just write one sentence in 5 minutes. That one sentence turned into a paragraph, then a page, and slowly the project moved forward. Another time, when I was terrified of rejection and couldn't bring myself to apply for a new job, I sat down and wrote my fear in detail. Seeing it on paper stripped it of its power. It wasn't a monster, just words. And then I clicked send. That small act felt like reclaiming part of my life. I also experimented with micro changes to shake up my routine. For years, I took the same street to work, head down, music blasting. One morning, I chose a different route and walked past a park I had never noticed before. The sunlight through the trees, the sound of kids laughing, it woke something inside me. That 5-minute change carried me through the entire day. I began to see the science behind it. Our brains crave novelty, and every new experience gives us a burst of dopamine, which restores motivation. I learned to celebrate micro wins: 5 push-ups after brushing my teeth, finishing 1 slide before bed, or even walking around the block instead of scrolling my phone. They all counted because each win told my brain, you are moving. And when I joined a small running group, I saw the power of community. On days I wanted to quit, watching someone else push forward made me lace up my shoes. We don't just motivate ourselves. We borrow energy from each other. The climax of all this learning hit me hard. The most dangerous thing wasn't failing. The most dangerous thing was never trying, letting the days blend together, and mistaking survival for living. To make progress sustainable, I built habits that were painfully simple but incredibly effective, and they barely took any time. Every morning, I set a 5-minute timer and emptied all my messy thoughts into a notebook. It
I'll
was like
finish one
cleaning the
slide
clutter
tonight,
from my
or
head
coffee's
before
on me.
starting the day, and I noticed how much lighter I felt. Right after waking up, I drank a full glass of water. It sounds trivial, but it gave me a sense of accomplishment before I even touched my phone. Some mornings, instead of diving into emails, I walked around my block for 3 minutes. That tiny walk reset my brain almost like pressing a refresh button. At night, I wrote a 3-line checklist. One thing I achieved, one thing I learned, and one thing I was grateful for. It took me less than 3 minutes, but it reframed my entire day from failure into progress. And when motivation slipped, I used an accountability trick. I told a friend, "I'll finish one slide tonight. If I don't, I owe you coffee tomorrow." It was playful, but powerful. The fear of disappointing someone, even in a small way, was enough to push me into action. Each of these habits was quick, sometimes laughably small, but they changed how I saw myself. Instead of being the person who never finished anything, I became the person who could always do something. And that shift was life-changing. The real climax came when I realized these habits weren't about productivity, they were about identity. Every tiny act was proof that I wasn't stuck. I was moving one choice at a time. Looking back, I see that being stuck was never a sign of weakness. It was a signal. A signal that I needed to shift, to grow, to question the invisible rules that no longer served me. I used to believe I had to wait for a big breakthrough. But the truth is, transformation came in small steps. 5 minutes of writing a glass of water, a different walk to work, a single message to a friend. And sometimes it came from breaking loyalty to old laws that were written for a child, not the adult I had become. To be loyal to myself now, I had to be disloyal to those silent expectations of the past. And I want to tell you this: if you feel stuck, you are not broken. You are simply at the edge of change. The way forward isn't a giant leap, it's the courage to take one small step today. So ask yourself, what is the tiniest action you can take right now? Write it down, do it, and watch how it changes you. And if this resonates with you, share your story in the comments. I want to hear how you've been stuck and how you've moved forward. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join this community because you don't have to fight inertia alone. Together we can keep moving one small win at a time.